Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for this week's micro webinar. We're going to talk about creating a branching scenario in PowerPoint. And it's pretty straightforward, but it's an interesting concept for those who are new with branching scenarios. So for this slide here, I chose this tree, this gnarly tree on purpose because I thought it was interesting and it kind of helps us to realize a linear presentation versus a branching presentation. Obviously a tree has many branches, and so by default, suppose there's a group of kids and they're trying to climb this tree, and everybody starts here at the bottom, at the space line here, and there might be a boy who climbs up and he has to make a choice. Do I want to go out on this limb here, or do I want to keep climbing over to the left? And so he chooses left, and then he makes another choice. I'm going to go out over here, and then there's just a lot of options. So maybe he'll come up this way, and he'll find himself eventually on this limb right here. Another student might start at the same point, make a few of the same decisions, but perhaps he wants to venture out this way, and he wants to go way back out here on this limb, and he ends up in a different route based on the choices that he made. And of course, girls can climb trees too, and they definitely do. So perhaps this little girl, she made a different choice right at the beginning. She says, I want to go out on this limb right here. And there are many choices, and so as she chooses, she goes behind that tree and she ends up at a different place as well. And it's an interesting scenario because at several points there are key decisions that people have to make, and they might end up in wildly different places based on these fundamental decisions. There's certain checkpoints where they have to choose one option versus another. And so one kid might end up here, one might end up on this tree, and or on that branch, and another might end up clearing a different area based on the route that they took. And so today, as we're talking about PowerPoint, typically the PowerPoint presentations are linear. That's the default, which means that you can go to the next slide or you can go back to the previous slide that you were just on, but you usually advance forward to the next slide. And that derives from the old slideshow carousels when you actually developed film into slides and you put them in this carousel and you had a remote and you could move forward or backwards, but it usually wasn't a scenario-based presentation. It was usually just going sequentially. So today we're going to explore this branching concept and how can we incorporate branching into PowerPoint. It's very interesting. So for today's micro webinar, I'm actually going to start out with a blank PowerPoint slide here. So you're welcome to follow along with me if you'd like. Otherwise, this will be a short 15-minute presentation. We'll have it recorded and up on our YouTube channel. You're welcome to ask questions or participate in the chat window at any time. I'll be monitoring that, and I have Mark Labbitt, one of the senior instructional designers, also facilitating, so he can answer questions as well if you have them. So this is going to be a very simple concept. Conceptually I'm going to show you, but there are other applications as well. And I'm essentially going to replicate one of the files that I share. So if you look in the handouts portion of GoToWebinar, you have two files that you can choose from. One is called Simple Branching Scenario. One is called Conditioning, which is it's still pretty simple, but it's a little bit more elaborate of a branching scenario. So you can feel free to download those if you'd like. So first of all, I have a title slide here, and I want to create a branching scenario. So I'm going to create buttons. The branching scenario, the whole point of the branching scenario is that it's based on choice. So you have to provide options on the screen for people to have choices. And so I'm going to create three buttons. Here's one. I'm going to hold Control on the keyboard as I select and drag this, and it'll make a copy. As opposed to not holding Control, it just moves it. But when I press the Control button, it actually makes a copy of that. So these are going to be my two buttons. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move one down here to the corner. This one, I'm going to align it right in the middle and center. Center is what I wanted. I'm going to hold Shift down and drag it so that it's right aligned with the left one. And you can see those markers. There's little dashed lines that indicates that it's right aligned with it. And this other one, I'm going to move so that it's aligned with those. And then as I scoot it to the right, I'm going to wait for that indication right there. You see those horizontal markers? That means that the space is equidistant from the space between these two, and the left two are equidistant. So now I have three buttons, and right now they're just shapes, but I'm going to make these into buttons. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new slide. Each of those buttons are going to go to a different slide. And so I'll go ahead and you can duplicate the slide or press Control D. What I'm going to do is, for one, these shapes have borders, so I'm going to make it so there's no outline. And then I actually like, if you bear with me 1 second, there's a color scheme. I like the old school color scheme, the 2007-9. So I'm going to select this one here, double click it, and it gets me to the Format tab. And I'm going to choose a red box for that one. I'll keep this blue, and this one here I'm going to choose a green box. So now I have red, green, and blue. I'm going to change these slides here in the design. I'm going to change the background color to red, green, and red, blue, and green. So this one I will choose blue, and this one here I will choose green. And what I'm doing right now, I'm formatting the background with a solid color. This isn't important. It's just to demonstrate that a red button is going to be associated with a red slide. A blue button will be associated with a blue slide, a green one to the green slide. And so that represents two levels of branching scenario. You start on the main page here, and based on what you choose, you're going to go to a second level. And later, we're going to create a third level as well. So I'm going to either right-click or press Control and K on the keyboard, and I'm going to click this hyperlink button. Now, instead of hyperlinking to an address on the internet or an email address, I'm going to click on a place in this document, and I can see all of the slides that I've created so far. And I'm going to choose slide 2 because that's the red one. And I'll do the same for these two. I'm going to click hyperlink, and this one will be hyperlinked to the blue one. And this green one, Control K on a PC, I'm going to link that to a green slide. Now, a little trick, if you want to preview the show, but you don't want to open the entire browser or the window, you can hold Alt while you press the slideshow button, and it'll give you a mini preview up here, so you can still see the thing. So I can click red. Now on the red slide, I have nowhere to go. So since it's still a linear presentation, I'm going to click back. Now I'm going to click the blue button. Now I have to back out to the main menu, and then I click the green button. So we're getting there. That's a start. What we need now is some kind of way to go back home. Plus, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these buttons. These are all hyperlinked. I'm going to just copy them, and I'll go to each slide, and I will paste them on there. Obviously, the red one's not going to show up there. The blue one and the green one. It looks like when I chose when I formatted them, I did format them with borders. So let me just take those borders off real quick. Shape outline, none. This green one, I'm going to go shape outline, none, just so it doesn't appear right there. Okay, so now we have hyperlinks within the pages. So let's preview that, see what that looks like. If I go from this home page to the green one, then I can bounce over to the red one, or to the blue one, or back to the red, back to the green. Okay, so we're getting some interaction there. And it looks like I need to, let me just ignore. I don't like that these have borders around them, but it's okay. I'll just ignore. I'll live with that for now. So what we want now is, once we're on one of these color slides, I want a way to get back to this home page. So I'm just going to go and search for an online picture. Let's see what we can come up with if I search for home. I'm going to look for some kind of home icon, and it looks like there's something good enough right there. So I'm inserting that. I'm going to make it small, and I'm going to put it up in the corner here. I'm going to double click on that because I think I want to change the color to maybe something more consistent with our theme. So maybe this purple accented color. All right, now let me hyperlink that so that it goes back to slide 1. Now you notice there are also additional places on the presentation that I can go to. I can go to the first slide, which is the same as slide 1. I can go to the last slide, next, previous, but I like linking it to particular slides, because if I ever need to change the order of the slides, then it remembers, okay, it goes specifically to this slide. And if slide 1 becomes slide 2, it's still linked to that original slide, which is now slide 2. So that's hyperlinked. Let's go ahead and copy that and drop it onto these other pages right there, and we'll go ahead and preview this. All right, so here's the home. I can go to red. From red, I can bounce to green. From green to blue, and then maybe back home. Let's check the home button on each of these. All right, so now I'm bouncing around. So that looks pretty fun. This is 2 layers then, or 2 levels of branching scenario. You have a main home page. From the home page, you choose one of these 3 options, which would be level 2. Now let's make a level 3. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this slide. I'm pressing Control D on my PC. Now I know I have a slide here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background from green to a solid color. I'll make a light green, and I will make a dark green. That's a little bit too dark. Let's go something like that. So now I have green, I have dark green, I have light green. All right, so let me change the color of this button to the light green. I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm just going to place it right above there. And then for this button, I'm going to change this to a darker green. Now I need to change the hyperlinks. So Control K on my PC. I want to link this button to the light green. And this one I want to link to the dark green. And then I'm going to hop back over here, and these should already be linked to the regular green, slide 4. So what I have is on this slide, I can go home, I can go to the red slide, I can go to the blue slide, and then I have 2 more options, which will get me to a 3rd level, which is I'm already on the green slide, but do you want a light green slide or a dark green slide? And so those should work that way. So let's test this out. Let's go back home. So from home, I can go red, I can go green, I can go blue, home, green again. Now let's test out the light green and go back to the green, and then the dark green and go back to the green. And from either of these, I can go home, or I can go to any other color. So now we have a branching scenario, but if you notice, and let me do this on full screen, it might be faint. Actually, I can't do it on full screen because I don't think GoToWebinar is showing that. Might be faint, but if you notice on the lower left-hand corner here, you still have the traditional PowerPoint features, which I can zoom in, I can mark it up, I can go forward and backwards. And this is what concerns me is the going forward and backwards, because I want to eliminate that. And we're going to talk about how to eliminate that. I'm going to take a step back real quickly and address a question that somebody has, which is, how do you create these buttons in the first place? It's really simple. All I did is draw a shape. Any shape or picture can be a button. And so I can take, what I took is this rounded rectangle thing here, but it can be a square, it can be a circle, any shape. So this diamond shape, for example. So I drew the shape, and I can go to hyperlink, and I can make that go to the dark green slide, for example. And so now I've created a button that will take me to the dark green slide. And you can hyperlink a picture as well. So, I got some nice pictures of beaches. If I wanted to, I could say, okay, this beach is going to be hyperlinked to slide 2, the red one. And here's a trick. I know we're kind of at the end of the time. I have one more thing to show you, but I'm just going to pause and show you an interesting trick. Suppose I have this picture, and I can blow this up a little bit, and I want to hyperlink only this palm tree right here. Here's the trick that I would do. I would grab a circle and make the circle about that shape or so. And I'm going to hyperlink that over to slide 2. So for example, we click on this and it goes to slide 2. I'm going to go ahead and take out the outline. I don't really need the outline. And then the shape fill, I'm going to put white. Now I'm going to go to Format Shape. And over here at Transparency, I can make this more or less transparent. If it's a transparency of 0, that means it's a white circle. But if I move this out to 99, then it's 99% invisible. It's essentially invisible, but it's there, and you know it's there. look at this, and you can see as I hover over that palm tree is actually a button. The other stuff is not a button, but this is a button. If I click on that, it goes to red. So that's kind of an interesting trick, not something I was intending on showing, but kind of a fun thing. One last thing that I'm going to show, I'm going to hop over to slideshow, and I mentioned that, for example, if I just show this right now, and if I click anywhere, it'll go to the next slide. Anywhere it goes to the next slide, and that's just how PowerPoint is. If I click on the keyboards, I'm going to click the arrows back, and you can see it's going through sequentially just using my keyboard. And I don't want that. I want to have people navigate by pressing the buttons. So I essentially want to disable the mouse and the keyboard, and disable the mouse for everything except for clicking buttons. So you do that by going into slideshow. By default, the slideshow is presented by a speaker, which means it's a PowerPoint presentation. What I want is a PowerPoint kiosk. And so I'm going to browse it, add a kiosk. And that disables the keyboard, and it disables the mouse for everything except for clicking on some element that is hyperlinked. And so if I go ahead and preview this now if I'm clicking everywhere, it's not working. I'm using the keyboard to go back and forward, and it's not working. So this PowerPoint is essentially stuck. It's stuck right here unless I do something interactive, which is click these buttons. So now I can bounce around, but if I click anywhere except for a navigation button, then I'm stuck. But if I click on home, then it works. So now I have a 3-level branching scenario.